Jay here from Stretford Paddock. This is a one-on-one interview, and joining me today is the Manchester football correspondent for the Daily Mirror, Dave McDonnell. Dave, it's good to finally get you on the channel. I've been mithering you on for years.
I was checking my messages. I think it was April.
Yeah, was it?
Last year. No.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's been a little while because we talk about you a lot on the channel. Obviously, you cover Manchester United and Manchester City, which we don't need to go into. Yeah. And we wanted to get you on and just ask you a little bit about what's been going on at United. I want to just start quickly on the postponements, because me and you were talking off camera. United Crystal Palace got postponed. United Leeds has been postponed because of obviously Queen Elizabeth's funeral. So what do you make? What effect do you think that's going to have?
It's a tricky one because I can understand the frustration of fans. I think the real issue is the postponement of last weekend's games, which I know caused a lot of anger and frustration amongst fans because they didn't see a logical reason to do it. The Premier League and the Football League made their decision early, and I can't for the life of me see why they couldn't have consulted with the heads of the ECB, for example, because obviously the test match went ahead after a day of mourning, I think, and then the PGA Golf. You know, the sporting bodies could have got together and decided, look, are we all going to en masse, have a break, or are we going to, observe a weekend of mourning? But the trouble is, you could have foreseen this because obviously with the funeral on Monday, 19th, it's such a unique event in our history. It's unprecedented, isn't it? Whether you're a royalist or not.
No, I agree.
The policing of that day is immense. And obviously, we can go on down a different rabbit hole now about the Tory government, but I think we've got 10,000 less police officers now than we had 10 years ago. So they're drafting in police from other forces, and obviously GMP are losing a significant number of police for the funeral. Hence why they can't police, United against Leeds, which is a Category 1 game, which requires more police presence. So I can see it from a logistical point of view and a policing point of view, but I have every sympathy with fans because if you were going to call games off, you'd have called this weekend's games off, not last weekend's. Because now, from a football point of view, of course, it's the Queen. This is a historical event, and I think maybe some fans need to see the bigger picture in terms of this is a once in a lifetime event, and it's exceptional circumstances. Where I do have sympathy with fans is last weekend's games because there was really no need to call them off. United played on Thursday, obviously. That was too late to call the game off. Obviously, the Queen died that afternoon. It was too late to call that game off. There was a minute's silence observed impeccably, I have to say.
It's a good point because I was there and there was no drama or anything.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I just think the football authorities, the Premier League in particular, jumped the gun, and I think they really should have consulted. The government didn't help either, I don't think, in the sense that they left it up to the governing bodies. They should have said, look, either make a decision that all sporting events are cancelled. I mean, the thing about grassroots was ridiculous.
That was,
kids'
don't
games.
get me started.
My youngest daughter plays football, in Stockport, and their training was cancelled. It's just ridiculous.
That was really frustrating. I felt sorry for I've got kids that play sport as well.
It's just ridiculous. But in terms of United, it's now created and for most teams, but United, it's created a huge fixture backlog in a season that's also unprecedented with the World Cup in winter. There's no room in the calendar at the moment at all. Anyway, they've scrapped FA Cup replays in the third round. They might have to scrap them in the later rounds as well, because I can't see where they're going to fit these games in. Certainly not before the World Cup. So they're going to have to be in 2023. And it's disappointing. I can understand the desire for football to show deference and respect to the monarch. I get that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to cancel games, it was always going to have to be the games in close proximity to the funeral because of the logistical issues that were bound to happen and are happening and are going to happen. Hence the postponement of Leeds.
Fortunately, our first game back in the Premier League will be against Manchester City, so it's easy days, isn't it? Nothing to worry about there.
Is that October the 2nd, isn't it?
Yeah.
So your last game will be Sheriff Tiraspol on Thursday.
Yeah.
Then you've got an international break. And then you've got 2 weeks before you'll be fine.
Nothing to worry about there.
It's only City.
It's only City, no dramas. Moving on to, obviously we talk about United, and you've been covering United, since Fergie, but obviously recently. What have you made of Erik ten Hag so far? What's the atmosphere around the club like under his management?
Yeah, I think positive. I think from the very first time we met him personally, when he came in and shook everyone's hands on the day he was unveiled, I think it was the day after the season finished, wasn't it, May 23rd?
So, yeah.
And he came in and shook everyone's hands on the front row of the press conference. He was keen to make the right impression. I think he stamped his authority immediately, and you can see that in the way that he's handled big names like Harry Maguire, like Cristiano Ronaldo. for him, reputations count for nothing. I don't think we've necessarily seen that in the last few years. Certainly not since Sir Alex. It didn't matter, what you'd done in the past. It was what you did on the training pitch and what you did in the game, previously that mattered. So I think he's brought a discipline back to the club, to the dressing room. I think he has brought back the authority to the post of manager, which I think had been lost in recent seasons. And even Bruno Fernandes. I mean, you were on tour with us in Australia. After one of the games in Melbourne, Bruno Fernandes came out and spoke to us, unprompted, I think, and said to us, discipline has been a problem in recent years, and there's something that needed to be tackled. So if a player is late for training or late for a team meeting, whatever, they won't play that weekend. It's that stark, And I think in the past, players, with a high opinion of themselves and high profiles on, not just in the game but on social media, felt that they could be late for a meeting, and because it was them, they would still play at the weekend. Ten Hag has said, no, everyone's going to be equal now. And if you're late and you show disrespect to teammates, you won't figure in my plans, Ronaldo, again, I mentioned Ronaldo, the way he's treated him. Obviously, he didn't have a pre-season, so he wasn't fit. So that, I think, in a way, that's kind of slightly made it easier for him in the sense of the way he's handled Ronaldo. But he's still Ronaldo, He played him from the start against Brentford, I think. And, of course, it was a 4-0 defeat, a humiliating performance there. He hasn't started since. And this is the manager who has the backbone to do that. I don't think we'd have seen that under. I don't think we did see that under Solskjaer. He only worked with Ronaldo as the manager for a few months, but certainly under Rangnick, I think Rangnick sort of, even though he spoke a lot of home truths, which I think a lot of the fans appreciated, and we certainly did in the press.
I can imagine that must have been like
man
from heaven.
Oh, it's brilliant for us.
I've not seen anything like that before or since.
It didn't go down well with the club, obviously. But I think with Ten Hag, you've got a guy who puts the team first. There's a huge importance on the team ethos and discipline and commitment and focus, and the way he's turned things around from the first two games is absolutely extraordinary. Is it 4 wins on the spin now?
Yeah. In the league,
in the league, sorry, obviously we had the defeat in the Europa League to Sociedad, but I just think the way he's turned things around is extraordinary, and that's given him a kind of more authority and really given him more clout to say, look, I'm doing the right things here, and you've all got to fall in line with me. So I think on a personal level, he's been very good on the tour. We had a sit down with him. He was very personable. Yeah. His English has certainly improved, I think, since that first press conference in May. Working with the players day in, day out, being on tour with them. His English, his grasp of English and his communication has got a lot better, I think. And, I think he's probably the manager United have needed, since Fergie. He's the one that fits the profile of loads to compare him with Sir Alex Ferguson, but he has that same, I think, sort of belief in authority and in discipline and in, coming down hard on players, irrespective of who they are, and I think that's been missing, certainly.
You've covered, obviously, from Fergie onwards. Do you get a better impression of him than you, perhaps Van Gaal and Moyes and Ole, or do you think that the jury's out still a little bit?
I mean, I think with...
I'm going to say a better impression, I mean in terms of the job, and what he can do.
I think, because I think that with not with Moyes, because I think people felt that Moyes was a kind of sort of a dynasty appointment. Was it a 6-year contract he got? So I mean, I know looking back at it now,
lasted 8.5 months into that, which says it all.
Yeah, but I mean, I think then people thought he was there for the long haul. It's kind of like they wanted him to build a dynasty like Sir Alex did. But then, so he was obviously sacked after 8.5 months. Then you got to Van Gaal. You always knew that would be a short-term appointment because of his age and everything. Mourinho, because of his just combustible nature.
Yeah.
Look at his track record. Everywhere he's gone, it's been 3 years, 4 years tops. Yeah, he falls out with people. He's on his way. So, and with Solskjaer as well, obviously, he got the job. I wouldn't say by default, but it was, because he started so well, they had an option but to give him the job. I think everyone really didn't feel he was, going to be a long-term appointment. But with Ten Hag, I feel you've got a guy here who the club certainly feel, and I hope the fans feel, they can buy into a philosophy that he's got and a long-term vision for the club. And I think he'll make decisions not just for his own self-preservation. He'll make those decisions for the team, for the good of the team. And obviously, you look at signs like Casemiro. See, he's not a long-term signing, but he made the point in that we've got to be successful in the here and now. So sometimes you can't wait for players to develop. But he also bought Malacia, who's obviously had a great impression, made a great start. He's one for the future, obviously, for the here and now, but he's certainly going to probably have some longevity in the team. So I think United fans can, for the first time, look we've been down this road before, haven't we, with Solskjaer?
I know.
So,
this is the thing. This is why I wanted to get your take on it as well.
Because in 6 months' time, it could all come falling down, and he could be on his way. But I just think the methods he has, the sort of building blocks he's put in place, the vision he has, and the way he's articulated that vision, to me, again, you asked the question about comparing him to the other managers who've come before him, he seems to have a long-term view of the club. Mourinho never really went to youth games, did he? Never had an interest in the youth
never,
team.
like you say, you were never going to get that with Jose.
No, it was always a short. I think that was obviously a knee-jerk reaction to City getting Guardiola.
Yeah.
You want to, and we all love that because we thought it would recreate the rivalry they had in Spain, in Manchester, but it didn't turn out that way. Although again, a lot of the stuff Mourinho said, like Rangnick has said, is actually come to fruition. There's a lot of stuff he said about the need for investment. The need to back him. Obviously didn't get backed, I think, in 2019, that summer after he finished second.
Yeah, when it was the Fred, Dello and
and he started kicking off on
Grant.
That horrendous summer. And he wanted Maguire, I think, that summer. And did he go? I think it was Perisic he wanted as well. From Milan.
I think that was sort of going on for a little while, wasn't it? He didn't get backed.
And now, the board appear to have backed Ten Hag, albeit, a couple of signings were made very late in the day, and they paid way over the odds for Anthony, and I would say Casemiro as well.
What have you made of that? The sort of the transfer summer, because me and you were talking off camera, we were chatting to James Ducker about it the other day. He was on the channel, and it just seems so bizarre that one minute Arnautovic and Rabiot, and then that's not happening.
Well, I was off then. So I was looking and thinking, God, what is going on there? I mean, I come back from the tour and had the best part of 3 weeks off. So I saw these names, Rabiot and Arnautovic. I'm thinking that's not in line with the policy that the club were, briefing us on, if you like. We're going to back Eriksen. And of course, De Jong was the player they spent 14 weeks pursuing, which
just very bizarre, that wasn't it?
Bizarre, embarrassing is the wrong word, but it was obvious that he didn't want to leave Barcelona.
Yeah. And
the whole sort of chasing him, and we're convinced, and John Murta and Rich Arnold going to Barcelona and being pictured there a couple of times. They spent a lot of money.
You might not say it's embarrassing, but I think it is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
I think it's embarrassing.
And then look at Anthony, who at the start of the summer, before we went on tour, I think their opening bid was £55 million.
Those are the numbers we were seeing, you guys saying,
ended up paying 85 million for a player that nobody else was in for. So €100 million competing with themselves. And I just, said, no, he's not going to get to this figure. And of course, listen, if he turns out to be a success and he's made a great start, fans aren't going to be concerned about that. But if you're looking at the transfer policy and the transfer strategy, it was pretty bonkers, to be honest with you, because at one time they're going for Jurrien Timber at Ajax, and then Van Gaal came out and said, I told him not to go there. And then they turned to Martinez, who incidentally has been a revelation. He's been a brilliant signing.
I wanted to ask you about that, because Martinez is a revelation.
Yeah,
I
really
agree with you. All this nonsense that was about his height and it's just ridiculous. What have you made of the impact that he's had at Manchester United so far? Well,
he's a warrior, isn't he? I think Ten Hag uses that word grinta, which is like that Latin American, South American kind of warrior fighting spirit, and he embodies that. And what is he, 5'9", 5'10"? And I know that was held against him after the Brentford game, and came off at half time, and Jamie Carragher tore into him and had a go at him about his height and everything. But he's provided the most eloquent rebuttal of that, hasn't he, with his performances since then? And he's kind of like, I know he's a different position, although he has played in midfield before, but it reminds me a bit of Roy Keane in the sense that he sort of drags other players up to his level. Yeah. He's got that fighting spirit, that kind of, never say die spirit, he's not afraid to get stuck in. And other players, I think, can feed off that. I think it's infectious for other players, and he's formed a great partnership with Varane already. Yeah. You can see him encouraging, Malacia on that side, on the left side. Dallo again has been a revelation, I think, using that word, but it's true, because when he was on loan at AC Milan, I think, 18 months ago,
it was all a bit sort of
like that's your career over with.
It didn't seem like he'd had a massive impact there. I know he'd had some good games, but the joy still felt out, and the smart money was probably on him moving on, and Wan-Bissaka being the main man.
Yeah, and now he's come in. So I think now what Ten Hag has got is a settled back four. We're talking about Maguire and Shaw and the World Cup coming up and all these sort of things, but Ten Hag has told these players, listen, you're performing, you are the most effective back four I've got, I'm sticking with you. It's up to the other guys to sort of prove in training that you deserve to dislodge them. But Martinez, I just think, epitomises that whole sort of Steve Bruce type spirit. You know what I mean? He just gets stuck in.
You see all the high fives as well, and the hugs with each other. I like that.
There was what game was it? I think it might be the Arsenal game, where Dallo, quite towards the end, I think, Dallo blocked across, I think. And again, they were high-fiving and,
it happened in Liverpool. I think it happened in
might be
Arsenal
Liverpool.
Liverpool as well. I think we've seen a lot of that.
Celebrate like a goal.
Yeah,
like a goal.
that,
and it's just, fans love that. And fans feed off that. So I think he has really kind of spread that kind of sense of belief and that spirit throughout the team. And, I think the midfield feed off it, the forwards feed off it, everyone feeds off it. The fans certainly feed off it. So I think his impact goes just beyond what he can do as a defender. It's transmitting that positive energy throughout the team.
You mentioned there about the fact that players you're playing well and getting the team. And one player that sort of surprised everyone, I think myself included, the fact that he's not just in the team but he's kept his players and doing really well. He's Scott McTominay this season.
Yeah,
because especially when Casemiro came in, everyone thought, well, that's Scott.
I got a lot of flack because I think I tweeted after the. Was it the little game? I forget because so many games. I'm getting old as well. But I think it was after the Liverpool game, and I tweeted about because and rightly a lot of people were heralding Eriksen and other players and Martinez. But I said for me I thought Scott McTominay stood out. Sorry, it was the Arsenal game because there was that. Was it Saka when he pulled him to the ground? There was that.
There was a bit.
So it was the Arsenal game, and I just felt that he was an sort of sung hero. And as you say, Jay, keeping Casemiro out of the team. Okay, Casemiro might not be match fit yet. But you're talking about a 5-time Champions League winner, a 4-time La Liga winner with Real Madrid. This guy is like the pinnacle of football. Scott McTominay, who's won nothing of that sort, is keeping him out of the team. And I think I've interviewed Scott a few times, and he's such a passionate United fan as well as player. And I think he speaks from the heart, he speaks his mind. And I think again we talked off camera, that's been missing from United in recent years. I remember speaking to someone before the Arsenal-Liverpool game as well, someone quite high up at the club who said, these new signings, they really want to play for the club. They really have that desire. I mean, you look at Martinez, who had the sporting director up against the wall, didn't he?
You're a nobody, he said
exactly,
soon, didn't he?
Yeah, you're X, Y, Z, and let me have this move. And Anthony going on strike. And that, I think, really resonated with the people at Old Trafford at United, the kind of hierarchy there, that these are players who weren't coming for a payday, that weren't coming for an easy life. These are players who wanted to play for the badge, play for the team, and you've seen that certainly with Martinez and Anthony in the brief time we've seen him, and that really sort of struck me that for too long you've had players come in there. Cavani, for example. I mean, I think everyone liked him at the start. Fans liked him, but it soon became apparent that he was, if he didn't fancy playing, he was injured. He felt a slight twinge.
Trained that ahead of the derby, didn't he? Trained all week and then he wasn't available.
He was getting 225, 250 grand a week.
Yeah, it was so
hardly played the last 6 months of his time at United. So I think it's unfair to maybe single out players, but people like Cavani, maybe Pogba towards the end, didn't really have that, desire to play for United. That kind of, I'm trying to think of it, that kind of passion to play for United. I think these guys embody that. I think whilst we can say that the last few days of the transfer window with Casemiro and Anthony were a bit bonkers. I think up to that, Malacia, Martinez and Eriksen, we haven't talked about him obviously, but I think there's some shrewd business going on there, certainly.
You mentioned Eriksen, and it would be remiss of me not to ask you about him. What have you made of his impact? Because obviously we've seen him before at Inter and at Spurs, but just from afar, I've been pleasantly surprised at how good he is. I didn't realise just the level that he's at. Yeah,
I mean, I think everyone, myself included, I think fans as well, other journalists, felt it would take him time to get up to speed, because of what he's been through. But obviously he was pretty, instrumental in Brentford doing well last season. I think they finished top after they were 11th or 12th
I think
or something.
His record there was they won something like 7 games or something when he was there.
So it proved it. So
impressive.
I mean, it shouldn't have come as a surprise, but it has done. And I think he's that player that United have lacked. That can, create something. Knit sort of from the back to the attack. And he's just gets into little pockets, and his range of passing is phenomenal. So I think he's certainly surprised me, but probably shouldn't have surprised me given the quality we've seen from him in the Premier League and obviously when he went to Inter. So I think, again, we talk about a settled team. He's got a settled team now. I think, that continuity is what's been lacking as well. I mean, look at Rashford, who's suddenly playing with a smile again and scoring again. He's playing in a settled position. The gripe, the sort of whispers and the gripe from Rashford's camp when he wasn't playing well last season or struggling was that he's been shunted left, he's been shunted right. He's been playing through the middle. He's not had a settled position, a settled run in the side, like he did maybe 4 years ago, I think, when he got 21 goals. I think him and Martial got 21.
Yeah, he had those back-to-back seasons, didn't he, where he got 20 goals.
So I think he's benefiting from a settled position through the middle. Okay, he can drift out, and the system allows for that to kind of interchange. But I think he's someone as well. I think there's a lot to be said for Ten Hag's man management. We don't see behind the scenes, but all the noises we hear and the information we get is that you know, he's really good in one-on-ones with players and encouraging them and giving them the self-belief. You know, maybe that was lacking under previous managers. Certainly, I mean, obviously under Mourinho, there's a lot of players who fell out with him.
Everyone at one point, wasn't it? You talk about man management.
Well, Martial came out, didn't he, recently, and spoke, you know, of how, you know, he lost the number 9 shirt to Ibrahimovic, came back and found, you know, he was number 11, and you know, that was under Mourinho. So I think a manager who believes in them and gives them that self-belief to go out there and, I mean, it sounds simple, but a lot of man management, I guess, is simple. You know, it's getting the best out of people and relating to them and bringing the best out of them, drawing the best out of them, you know.
Well, you nailed it there with like the 3 people you mentioned, Dalot, McTominay and Rashford, because those are players that, I mean, I love Marcus Rashford, but I was worried for him this season. I thought if he hasn't got a season like last season.
Got 5 goals last season.
Yeah, you can't have 2 seasons.
32 appearances.
Yeah,
that's just not good enough.
Poor. McTominay, again, there's a lot to like about him. His passion, he gets it.
Yeah.
But there was a worry, you know, is he at the standard you want? And we've seen that. And Dalot, who, I keep saying this, but it's true. I get a good impression off Diogo Dalot. You know, we've spoken to him a couple of times on the channel. He came to the mix zone pre-season. He seems like someone who, you know, is willing to give his all. But you think, you know, is he at the level you'd want? And Ten Hag's getting the best out of these players. And Rashford, you mentioned that, he looks like the Marcus Rashford of
old,
2017 or whatever. He just looks
like
I
was thinking. I mean, when I tweeted about McTominay, saying I think he was one of United's best players today. There were plenty of stand-up performers, but I thought he was, you know, one of the best. People are obviously on the Twitter keyboard warriors. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
I refuse to believe that people argue with you, Dave, on Twitter. I don't know what you're on about. It never happens.
but you know, people like McTominay are never going to convince the people that have formed that opinion of him already that he's not good enough. Yeah. But you know, against Liverpool, who are arguably one of the best teams in Europe, okay, they've had a poor start this season. You know, he ran the midfield. Okay, they had injuries. They had Milner in there. They had Harvey Elliott. I think Thiago's injured, wasn't he?
Yeah, Thiago's out.
So
I'm not sure if Fabinho.
Fabinho was on the bench. I think he came on. But so he's held his own against Liverpool midfield and dominated the midfield there. Then you play the league leaders in Arsenal. Yeah, okay, that was their first real test playing you, but you know, he held his own there as well. Yeah. You know, so you know, all right, you're not in the Champions League this season, but I do feel that McTominay gets a raw deal sometimes. You know, because of who he is, because he's not a name.
I think sometimes players get associated with things like Fellaini got associated with everything that Moyes and what went wrong, and McTominay probably gets associated a little bit with what went wrong with Ole. By certain managers, they go, McTominay, you know.
Yeah.
You used to see it years ago. Do you remember before Darren Fletcher came to the player that Fergie's love child, you know, all that nonsense. And I see a little bit of that McTominay, and I'll be honest with you, I was doubting whether he was going to get to the levels we wanted, but this season he's been brilliant.
Well, I think many of us thought Fred would be the one that would step up this season, but it's been McTominay, and Fred's been the one on the bench. So I think he's there on merit. You know, there'll be times when he, you know, probably be rested on Thursday, you would think, for the Europa League. Yeah. Although resting him for what? You haven't got a game. So.
Resting him for so he can have a full month off rather than just 3 weeks. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the sort of setup at United now. We mentioned transfers. You've got John Murtagh, who seems to be quite heavily involved. You've got obviously Erik Ten Hag, who seems to be leading the way in what he wants from the transfer market. Do you think this is a setup that can work at United? I
do, and I think it was telling. You know, we go back to that time when Richard Arnold met the fans and got secretly filmed. And I think there was a line, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he said something on the lines of, "Oh, do you want me buying the players again?" Yeah. In a very sort of unsubtle dig at his predecessor, Ed Woodward. Yeah. So I think obviously for so many years, you know, Ed had the sort of last say or was conducting business. I think Richard Arnold, you know, to his credit, has said, look, you know, John Murtagh, Darren Fletcher, you identify the players with Erik. And then I'll get involved, you know, in the kind of, you know, negotiation and you know, signing it off, if you like. I mean, it's not as simple as that. But I mean, he's leaving the football side of it, and he wants to be less hands-on than Ed was. And I think that's helped. I think you need that autonomy. If you're going to appoint a football director, you need to give them the authority to go out and identify players and discuss that with the manager and with the scouts. So I think it's a system that can work. It's a process that can work. You know, I do think, as we said just a few minutes ago, the haphazard, you know, signing of Casemiro and, you know, the pursuit of De Jong and getting Anthony in and paying over the odds for him, that doesn't fill fans, you know, with much confidence. I can see why, but I think, you know, Murtagh knows the club. You know, he knows European football pretty well from what I gather. He knows, you know, the kind of players that United want to play for the club and to have that passion and that heart to play for the club. So we'll see, but I think United have long needed a structure in place like that, rather than the chief executive or the executive vice chairman, calling the shots in terms of player recruitment. It was just, and you look at the £1 billion that's been wasted on players. We could sit here for twice as long of this show talking about Schneiderlin, Depay,
Well, even you look at it, like even Lukaku, Di Maria, Falcao didn't work out.
Yeah,
Alexis Sanchez.
Yeah.
No, let's stop.
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. And we've only scratched the surface there.
Yeah.
There's so many others. It's just Schweinsteiger.
Yeah,
the Galacticos sort of thing.
High hopes for him. And
even though he's still revered. I mean, he only played about 20 games, didn't he?
He had that. I always say this. He had that great game against Liverpool for Martial's debut. That's why I always.
Oh yes. Funny enough, we're going to segue into that.
We can get into that actually, because you've been. That's a nice little segue, yeah. Because we talk about Twitter, and there's an article or the back page that always pops up when Martial does anything well. Yes, I don't know if you're aware of this, Dave. You've probably not seen it before, but there was the headline says "What a waste of money," and it's about Martial signing for Manchester United. And if I look on the byline there, I can see Dave McDonnell.
Yes,
and people like to remind you of this.
Why
and say that obviously you got it wrong is the accusation.
Why need to set the record straight here?
Okay.
One, I don't write the headlines. So I had no input into the headline. What a waste of money. Secondly, that story, I think it's up there, isn't it?
Yeah,
on the
just got it there as a reference.
The story was from do you remember Soccer X? They used to have an exhibition here.
Yeah,
at I call it GMX. What is it? Manchester.
I still call it GMX.
Yeah,
Manchester Central. What's the
Manchester
GMX?
Central.
Manchester Central. I'm asking the wrong people here. These youngsters won't know.
We go back a long way, so it's the GMX.
It's the GMX. Yeah.
But anyway, that exhibition there, soccer thing, and the great and the good, and it was more of an industry thing, and innovation and that sort of stuff. And there was a body, I can't remember their name now, but they did this research into transfers and what players are worth and what the market value is and everything. And they concluded that Martial was only worth about 12 million or something on the market. Yeah, right. I think United paid 36 million.
With add-ons. It goes
so the story was Man United have paid 3 times over the odds for Anthony Martial, according to a survey. Of course, fans don't see that. No. They just see the headline, what a waste of money, my byline.
Yeah.
You're not, and I didn't see him play, so I can't make a judgment on him. I'm just reporting what someone else is saying.
Yeah.
It was like Deloitte or someone like that was that kind of company or that kind of institution. So this story kind of got put about that it was my opinion that I had said he was a waste of money. And so every time he scored...
you've got your little footnote there in Manchester United history, you're part of that chant.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I actually love that chant as well, by the way. I think it's ingenious. It's brilliant. Mind you, every time he scored it, I was like, oh, Christ.
Were you like, oh, here we go, going on Twitter, why am I trending again?
Even mates of mine, United fans, I told you.
Because you was one of your headlines sort of was trending again. We may as well just get it all out here, Dave. It's a chance for you to explain.
Session,
it is. Come on, it's very cathartic. There was the one on the tour. I mentioned the tour where Harry Maguire and Erik Ten Hag. I'll let you explain. Harry Maguire and Erik Ten Hag. There was a bit of discussion about the captaincy.
Yeah, we had a sit down with Erik Ten Hag, all the national daily newspapers. I think Sky one as well, BBC, and it's kind of a tradition that the manager sits down with the travelling media on the tour to give them sort of 20 minutes, half an hour of his time. Yeah. So we sat down with Erik, and he was very kind and polite and everything. And one of the stories from it, one of the lines from it was, he confirmed that Maguire will be his captain, but he has to perform. So the captaincy, the armband won't save him. From the drop, effectively, he's got to perform, and as we've seen, that's come to fruition. Yeah. He's still the captain, but he's not in the team.
Spot.
So I wrote this story, and for the Mirror, and of course the Mirror, we're owned by Reach PLC, so the Mirror bought out the Express and the Star. So my copy goes to the Mirror, Express, and the Star. So in the Mirror, the headline was something like Ten Hag warns Maguire, Ten Hag, Harry's my captain, but he must play, must perform. In the Express, it was something like similar, sort of Ten Hag says Maguire's captain for now but must perform. The Daily Star headline was slaphead if he's slaphead. And I see this and I think, Jesus Christ, I barely met the new manager of Man United.
It's a good way to ingratiate yourself to the new manager.
Yeah, and I had to deal with this. So I mean, all joking aside, it's a pretty offensive headline. Of course, I sort of made representations to my office straight away. So look, this is not the way to do this. If you said this about a female athlete, or you said this about someone's weight or someone's gender or sexual orientation, whatever, we live in more enlightened times now. Yeah. You can't get away with it. We laugh about it to a certain extent because it's put me in a position, but equally, and it did cause quite a few issues. I had to I basically apologised to Erik and said, listen, you know, I had no part of this, and I made representations to my office about it, and they, you know, spoke to United and said, look, you know, it was the wrong call on this occasion. So, you know, these things happen. You know, headlines always sink you. That's the thing.
Yeah, it must be a nightmare for you though when you're sort of,
because the copy didn't reflect the headline.
You just get a notification or whatever, or you just see it. And
Yeah.
you think,
Exactly. That does make my job easier.
Yeah.
And that as well, the Martial, you know, is a classic example of that. And I get why, of course, you know, you know the industry as well. I've been in newspapers 25 years. The headline is always going to push the boundaries to sell a story, but not often, but sometimes we overset the mark with them, and it comes back to bite us, as it did on that occasion and in the summer. But and often the copy. Certainly on those two occasions, the headline didn't reflect the copy, which is
people don't want to read the copy.
Exactly.
They just want the headline. That's where we'll go into.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you. You know, you mentioned there the fact you've been covering United since Sir Alex Ferguson days. I just wanted to ask you how that was, and if you had any run-ins with the great man.
Yeah. Well, you like this? I was a student in Manchester back in the day, and then I went down to London and worked down there covering the London clubs, and then got the call to come up here 2001. Ironically, around about this time, it was around when 9/11 happened.
Oh yeah.
And that season, if you remember, Sir Alex was going to retire.
Yeah,
2002.
Rumours of Sven-Göran Eriksen, I think.
Yeah. So my office said, like, you know, go up. I think I was replacing James Fletcher, who'd moved from the Mirror to what was then, you know, still going the News of the World to cover United. But my lot said, go up there, you know, finish out this season. There'll be a new manager in charge of Man United in 2002, and you can get to know him and, you know, get your feet on the table. I said, yeah, brilliant. So I got up here. In January, Ferguson does a U-turn, stays for another 13 years or whatever it was, 12 years.
Yeah.
But it was brilliant because I had the second half of his reign, if you like. I think was he 26 years?
26 and a half years, yeah.
So I had
the last 13,
last 12, 13,
years,
so I had the second half, which was brilliant because, you know, you had, you know, the kind of, you know, the early success, then obviously Arsenal won the title, then the rise of Mourinho and Chelsea, then you had the whole Magnay McManus, Rock of Gibraltar. You had the Glazers coming in. You know, it's been a pretty tumultuous kind of period. And yeah, it's a privilege to cover this club. You know, you go follow them around the world. You know, the most successful, you know, most famous club on the planet to cover it. And I never lose sight of that. You know, you have to be pretty humble to understand that you're in a privileged position. But I did have run-ins with him, plenty of run-ins with him, and got banned. I think Neil Custis may have got banned more than me, but I think I was into double figures.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
He was quite ban happy, wasn't he?
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah. Anything he wrote that he
yeah.
didn't agree with. And it was his way, and I understand it. You know,
Yeah.
didn't agree with it at the time, but I understood it looking back on it. He was protecting the club. You know, he had to be seen to be asserting his authority. Going back to what Erik Ten Hag was talking about, asserting your authority as a manager. But I remember one story with him. It was his final season. It was the first leg of the Champions League, last 16 at Real Madrid.
Oh, yeah.
And Mourinho was in charge of Real Madrid. We were over in the Bernabeu for the first leg. It was the pre-match press conference, and it was packed in that press room there. You know, it's sort of have to crane your neck. It's not big enough for the amount of people that are in there. And he couldn't see me, and the cameras are on, the lights are on. And I get the microphone, and he's on the top table, but he can't see me because I'm around the corner. And I said something like, you know, Sir Alex, you know, Jose Mourinho is one of the few managers who's got a better head-to-head against you. You know, I was trying to kind of, you know, damn him, you know, sort of butter him up a little bit there. And I said, you know, what is it that makes Jose's team so hard to play against? And he was sort of looking like that. And I think whoever it was, the press officer said, it's over there. He went, hey, I recognise that voice. It's like poison creeping over my body. And he was like, hello, David, like that. I was like, God. And of course, everyone was laughing about it and everything. But he was good at delivering the one-liners. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I got banned by him. You know, I remember going down to Old Trafford when Roy Keane came back from injury in 04-05, not the one he had in 97.
98 one,
no,
the other one.
The other one. And I think there was about 10,000 there at Old Trafford. And I can't remember who the opposition was, but you know, normally on match day you have security, don't you? And you can't get anywhere near the tunnel if you've got a pass or anything. But I thought, well, you know, being a sort of industrious journalist and using my head, I'm going to go down there and see if I can get a word with Keane. So I walked up the tunnel, no one there, no security there, and waited for Keane to come out. Just so I don't think anyone else was there. Well, they were still up in the press box, and by the tunnel, by the tunnel, there were the doors come out. You know, they come out to the tunnel, then turn down the tunnel, go to the pitch, and there's two lots of double doors. And I just see Fergie walking out, and I'm just on my heels before he's even come out because he's just like that. And he comes out, you know, you're not fucking meant to be here. What you doing there? And I was like, look, I'm going. I said, I just want to speak to Roy. You know. So yeah, I mean, he was great value. I mean, you know, to cover, you know, the most successful manager in British football history, you know, is something, you know, unique, you know, and something, that is a great privilege. You know, as I said at the time, you you're working on a professional level and you have run-ins and you're trying to protect yourself and your position within, covering the club. And if you get banned, it's not great. People say it's a badge of honour, and people always say, you must be doing something right if you're banned. And I understand that, and you're getting up his nose and you're covering the club in the right way but equally you want to be in there. You want to be in there listening to him and asking him questions. So. Some of the bans for some people, I remember sort of 4 or 5 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes 1 week, but some of them lasted months.
Daniel Taylor got
Danny got a ban.
I think he got a ban for...
Which was ridiculous because he wrote a book, again, I think it was in the 04-05 season, he wrote a book about, behind the scenes and everything. And Ferguson didn't read it at all. He just said, right, ban him,
Yeah, I remember when I was at the radio with our reporter, he got a ban for something the DJ had said and done. We had these breakfast presenters who've done this joke about, when Beckham got hit with a boot, and they'd done a thing about, hands off our Becks or whatever, and they got that carried some with a banner, leave Becks alone or some nonsense. Just messing about, and he found out about it and just... Hugh was our reporter.
Well, when that happened, I remember that game. It was an Arsenal FA Cup game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember that game, and I wasn't there. I was actually with my now wife at the game, watching it.
Oh right.
Trying to woo her by taking her to United. It clearly worked.
Yeah.
But I remember I got a bollocking for not getting the story, even though I wasn't working at the game.
Right.
And the sports editor at the time asked me. There was a Champions League game the following Tuesday, I think, press conference.
Yeah.
And the sports editor asked me to go in the press conference wearing a crash helmet. And I was just like, I'm not doing that. What tiny shred of credibility I've got left.
Gone. Right. Actually, I thought you were talking metaphorically. Like,
no, actually put a crash helmet on. I'm going to sit in the front row.
No, you definitely needed it if you didn't wear it.
But I think one of the news guys did it.
Really?
One of the news guys, did it. Yeah. Actually, but not at the press conference. Sort of trying to doorstep Fergie as he came to Old Trafford.
No, I only did a few Alex presses, and I was always at the back just covering for radio. I didn't have to ask any questions.
Yeah.
And even though I loved Sir Alex, I was glad.
He was intimidating. He was. When I first
at.
came, he was intimidating. There's no denying that. When he was in full hairdryer mode, and he absolutely put the fear of God into you. But equally, after a few years of covering it, you kind of got to know where you stood with him. And I remember there was one time as well. The Mirror did a story on the news about United snapping up some Brazilian kid who was only about 7 or 8. And I think at that time it was against FIFA regulations. It was on the news pages. No one had told me. I think I was off the day before. And I came in and Di Law said to me, Dennis's daughter, who was
used to manage a lot of this.
Yeah, it was the press officer at the time, said, I'm afraid you're banned. I said, what for? She said, I've been off, I haven't written anything. At least give me a clue. And she said, this story. I said, but I had nothing to do with that. It's not my byline. Yeah, but it's your paper. And I was so angry about it. And I actually confronted Fergie about it when he came out in that main area of the training ground when we used to do the press conferences in the little room. I said, Alex, this is not fair. I said, I've nothing to do with this story. I appreciate it. And to be fair to him, he said, look, okay, I understand that, but I've got to protect my football club. You go and tell your news desk that they put you in this position. Go to speak to your paper and tell them why this has happened. And he gave me the time. He gave me the opportunity to explain it. So sometimes he was, he would accept, listen to you. And I think Fergie liked him when people stood up to him. Not always.
No, I think there's James Cooper who might have mentioned.
There was a bit of grudging respect there, where maybe that's the old trade union man in him or whatever. People standing up for themselves and what they believe is right. But yeah, it was an education, definitely.
Well, you survived it. Just quickly before I let you go, because I know time's pressing. You mentioned the Glazers there, and I just wanted to ask you about the ownership. Do you see that changing anytime soon? I know this is a sort of a topic that you must get to a lot.
If I'm honest, I don't.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I'm full of admiration for the opposition towards the Glazers, because I think the fans have really stepped it up in recent months as well. With the 1958 group.
massive respect for
them.
that.
And I think their ethos is to try and keep it peaceful, but hard, and sustainable. And I think you've seen that. This has not gone away just because the team are suddenly doing well again, just because the club has spent 230 million on transfers. They've absolutely, sustained it. So I think they're full of admiration for that. I just think the Glazers are so stubborn that they've not shown any inclination to sell. And when they're taking so much money out of the club, and I know fans will hate me for saying this, but when they're making so much money out of the club, why will they turn their backs on a cash cow? I mean, was it last November, December? Two of them, wasn't Joel or Avram or Brian, but was it Edward and Darcy?
Names that I never even heard of. And then these
non-executive directors taking 115 million out as personal dividends for their own gain. So that's money that is being siphoned from the club. So I think it's right that the fans are able to protest. I think they have to do it in a lawful manner.
No.
But I understand why suddenly it can overspill, because this is the fan base here is so passionate and so dismayed at the way the club's been treated over the last 17 years. The amount of money that's been taken out of the club. I don't think obviously rival fans will mock United and Liverpool fans will sing Glazer in, but I mean they know how damaging it's been for this club, and if they were in the same position, they'd be doing exactly the same. So I have admiration and respect for the fans. I just feel that at the moment, but obviously they have to keep it up, because just because the Glazers are so stubborn isn't a reason to not persist with it.
No,
I just feel that there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, a few weeks ago about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and this sort of stuff. And we've been down this road before. What's it going to be? 6 billion, 5 billion?
I mean, there was a figure bandied around about it could be 3.9 billion, but you're talking.
They bought it for 750 million, didn't they? So they're making a huge profit.
And they didn't even use their own money.
They didn't use the money leverage, didn't they? So it's just, it's sickening for United fans, and I sympathise with them. But I just don't see the Glazers selling anytime soon, unless they start to lose money. I mean, because we've seen that they are, they don't communicate with the fans. I know they're trying to change that. They say the other club are trying to change it with the fan advisory group or whatever, or the fan body. But they should have had dialogue with the fans from day one.
It's been horrible. I think I always get them mixed up, and it don't really matter. Joel or Avram, whoever it was, did a call or a conference call or a Zoom meeting with the fans after the protest following the Super League for the Liverpool game. But it's not enough, and I think the ship sailed me. I think that
lack of visibility has contributed to it. I mean, quite apart from the money they've shamelessly taken out of the club, that lack of visibility, that lack of communication. I mean, what kind of owners do that and treat the fans with such contempt?
It's good to see you always covering the protest, though. I notice you always do. Dave, could chat to you for ages. I could chat to you about Sir Alex. It's been great having you on the channel. You can check Dave out on at the Mirror, writing about Manchester United, of course, and if you want to see that as well, Manchester City. I think you've got to go to a City press conference soon, haven't you? So make sure you check it out. Don't forget as well to hit like, share, and subscribe. This has been a one-on-one interview with Manchester football correspondent for the Daily Mirror, Dave McDonnell. I've been Jay. Thanks for watching.